Welcome into another edition of Spits and Suds. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan, joined by two-time NCAA champion, two-time Stanley Cup winner, 17 years in the NHL, one of your favorite all-time Dallas Stars. He's Craig Ludwig. How are you, buddy?
I'm better than you. It only takes me one take to get going. It took you a couple this morning.
I should have left that in because I think people would have appreciated that.
I know you should have.
Yeah.
Can we just tell everybody what you did?
I started to flub up and I just threw the F-bomb hard.
Oh, it was hard.
It was hard. Because there's so many accolades, you know? I mean, because in my mind, I'm like, why did I throw out Stanley Cup champion before NCAA champion? And then I flubbed that up, and yeah, I should have listened to you, and I should have left that in. That would have been a tremendous start to the podcast.
Yeah, anytime you say "fuck me," it's really good.
That is true. All right, we got a lot of stars to talk about, but a few things. Craig played in the alumni game last Saturday, and we were excited to find out how Craig did, and he hosted a forum of Edmonton Oilers and Dallas Stars for people there, so a great day. And how did Mr. Moderator do? And then, how did you do lacing them up?
We were good. I'll tell you what, we do a little deal on these things usually when we have this alumni setup where the Stars are playing an afternoon game. We go on after they're finished, and but I'd say about an hour and a half before the game starts for the Dallas Stars. That past one was at 2:00. We do a little round table, and we try to get as many guys as we can from the opposing team, whoever it is, and then we usually get Darian Hatcher this year, Ed Belfour, Marty Turco. We're up there, but we were fortunate to have some Hall of Famers up there. Craig McTavish, Kevin Lowe, Eric Cole, who had played here before, Chris Joseph, who was a former number 1 pick overall. And it's funny, like I introduce them and I kind of have them sit down in that order, and then I'll kind of start and kind of finish with, I usually finish with Eddie or Hatch. But this year having Craig McTavish and Kevin Lowe, I think we had sitting up there, we had like 15 or 16 Stanley Cups between the group, and Lowe and McTavish have 10 of them. So, but you know what? It went very well. And Ryan Mers, who's the managing director with Bank of Montreal, they have a lot of their people there, and they're a big part of what we do. But it went really well, and what I say is, and Bobby Basson, our alumni director, we were talking about it yesterday. It went well because these guys they're so accommodating with stories, and I do a lot of stuff, same as anybody would, just kind of leading up and getting a couple nuggets from each guy. And which, speaking of that, I was talking with Eric Cole. He's got a couple interesting stories about, being traded at times, and the one in Dallas, and one other one. And I kind of left it with him, and I said, man, how did you guys enjoy the NHL All-Star game this year? Because they kind of, as they kind of went back to the original, or some of the older, things that they did, the, hitting the targets and the fastest skater and stick handling and all this other kind of stuff. And and Connor McDavid actually had, what did he have? A 13.4, I think, was his time of skating a lap. And I just said to Eric, I said, well, what did you think of that? Because Eric Cole was a very powerful, fast skater. I said, what did you think of that? And he goes, man. Well, anyway, going back to when Eric Cole had played for Edmonton, a short stint, they have these days. Some teams do it. They'll have just kind of a fun day. They'll take their players on their teams and at a practice or something like that. They'll go through the NHL course, all the things that they do. Well, when they were back at the Rexall Arena, the one prior to what they're playing in now, Eric Cole's time of doing a lap was 13.1. Connor McDavid's, different setup, is 13.4. So it just kind of tells you, and that was probably the biggest Ooh, from the people that were sitting there, because everybody obviously knows Connor McDavid and how fast he is, and being a dominant player in this league. And then you've got a guy sitting up there that not the same circumstances, different building, but the buildings are the same size. So you make a lap, you make a lap. So it just kind of tells you. But once you get Craig McTavish and Kevin Lowe, who's done everything. I mean, he's won everything you can possibly win in the game, along with 6 Stanley Cups. And they like to share. So it becomes very interesting event. So it goes over very well. We had a good time. And the game was the game, but we did lose. So that's the first time in a long time. I don't know if we've ever lost at home, and which is okay because we beat the Oilers all the time in the playoffs, at least when I was playing. So they owed us one. But anyway, the teams aren't 100% Dallas Stars alumni and 100% Edmonton Oilers. So, there goes a chopper. They're probably looking for me. They're, what happens is that they don't have enough players, and we take some of our alumni guys and not current or Dallas Stars guys that play in our alumni, and we'll sprinkle them in. You were at the SMU event when we played SMU, and so similar kind of thing. We have some guys that are good hockey players that skate with us at times, and so we just kind of spread them out.
Eric played parts of 3 seasons with the Stars, 2012 to 2015. I remember watching him, and I loved his game. I loved that he had that perfect combination. He was a power forward, but he had great speed. And then he got traded to Detroit, and that was the trade that brought us Matthias Janmark. So kind of interesting. Matthias Janmark and a second-round pick. But, yeah, I always liked Eric Cole's game. A lot of years in Carolina, Montreal. So that's cool that it was a good game. And then the other night we had a dinner as part of Jared Sandler's Sandlot charity. They auctioned off.
Hey, let's call it what it is. It's a Dean Martin roast. If people aren't familiar with Dean Martin roast, you need to go back and look at him. And so I become Dean Martin, and the people that roast get up there on and they take shots at him, and our roastee is Gavin Spittle.
Yes. It's 3 hours of me just like spinning around similar to a pig on a roast, where I just sit and I take it. And absolutely. So thanks to, I guess, no thanks. So the backstory is that I wanted to bid on this because I wanted it so that I wouldn't get roasted and it would just be me and Craig at dinner, or I'd just tell Craig, take the night off, and I'd get a free dinner to myself and I'd find someone else to go with. But unfortunately, Big E outbid me.
But you got to admit, this whole dinner is really catering to you. I mean, so we go to this really, really nice restaurant, Musume, and it's, basically sushi, and they've got everything, but sushi is their go-to, right? And so all the plates come out, and it's an unbelievable display of everything you can imagine.
Amazing.
And what were there? 7 of us, 6 of us, something like that. But then we have to have special plates. We have to have special food, and it can't be this and it can't be that. And the poor waiter's got to describe everything different for Gavin so he can have his specialty food, because he's this and he's that, and he has to have a special sake. And so it really does become the Gavin show for a while.
Listen, as a fellow athlete, Craig, you can understand your body breaks down. And so with my years of tennis, my body broke down, and so therefore I had to go on a different nutrition plan, and it has given me a lot of relief.
Former athlete, the former grade school tennis player is now considers himself a former athlete.
2018 Hall of Fame. I mean, yeah, I lobbied for myself, but yeah, I got in. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So that was a good dinner, and that was really cool. And I did want to talk about one of the stories that came out, because, what I love about the Craig Ludwig dinners is stories just start flying. And one of the stories was Pat Burns was a former coach of yours, and that people that don't know, Pat was a coach for the Canadians. He coached for the Bruins. I believe he coached for the Maple Leafs as well. Pat Burns was a former police officer and then became a head coach. So he had the means, right, Craig, to make sure that you guys were behaving.
Well, they're not necessarily to make sure that we're behaving. I mean, it is about hockey. It's about your game. It's about the team. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily about that kind of stuff. But yeah, Burnsy was the perfect coach for us at that time in Montreal. And by the way, he was in Jersey also. Jersey, Boston, Toronto,
really
Montreal.
Good coach.
But anyway, you forget the city where he wins the Stanley Cup in.
So good point.
When Burnsy would have meetings, and I can't speak for all the other players, I was just telling the guys, I mean, my meetings with Burnsy and being a former police officer for something like 17 or 18 years, I believe, in Montreal, you can imagine the connections that they have, between undercover guys and regular people and restaurants and bars and everything, you name it. He had a handle on everything that we did on and off the ice, and probably for him, more importantly, off the ice. And I would say importantly for us too. And so there were times when, and there was a particular playoff game. He called me in, and I if I remember right, we won the game, and I was okay in the game. And you get the little poke of a head in after you're all sitting there after a playoff game, and the coach says, "Hey, come on into my office," and that's never really a good thing. So I go in, he's sit down and talk for a minute or two, and he goes, "Well, how do you think your game was tonight?" And you tell him, and not bad. You don't ever kind of go over the top, and you don't try to undersell yourself like that. And then he goes, "What did you do last night? Like the night before the game?" And I said, "Well," and he goes, "No, what'd you do?" And I knew that they know a lot, and so I just said I was at this place and I was at that place. And he goes, "You making it for curfew?" And I said, "Well, technically I wasn't home for curfew, but I was out of the establishment that I was in by curfew, which doesn't mean you're in for curfew." And he proceeded to tell me exactly what time I left there, how many Molson Goldens I had. And then he also said, "What about Peter?" And I was with a former player of mine, and he was also a defenseman, and Peter Svoboda. And and he said, "Yeah." Because Peter, now that I'm telling the story wrong, but Peter was in there with me, and so we were in there talking about it. So he decided to rattle off how many packets of DeMaurier cigarettes Peter ordered or bought while we were there. So that it's an eye opener when all that kind of stuff happens. But what it is he also knows now, going back and then moving forward after the days when you're there and you talk about these stories, he knew that we would probably tell this guy and that guy and this guy, and then it would spread through the locker room. And at the end of the day, what it does, it's like, man, he's got eyes in the city. And, that was his way of letting us know, we know where you are. And he ended the meeting with me. It wasn't much of a meeting. I mean, everything was good. We won the playoff game, and he goes, "Okay." And we kind of got up to walk out, and he just says, "Hey, Luds." And he looked at me, and I said, "Yeah, coach." And he goes, "Do it again tomorrow night." In other words, go back out tomorrow night, do the same thing that you did, because you had a good game. And that was the kind of guy that he was. There was another playoff game, went in there. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it was a playoff game or not, but it could have been a regular game. He same thing, motioned me in, sat down, had the TV sit in front of him, pops in a tape, and which usually means that you're going to watch your shifts and all this other kind of stuff. And so he just starts looking at it, and he's smiling. I'm going, well, this probably isn't going to be a bad meeting. And he turns the monitor around, and it's him water skiing. and he knew that I had a water ski school in the summer. When I go back to Wisconsin, a friend and I, we had a water ski school that we did for 2-3 months and taught kids how to ski and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, that was the kind of coach that he was. And I just think that once you get to know the personality and who they are, as importantly as they need to know who players are on and off the ice, you seem to, well, at least I did. I appreciate the job that he had to do in a city like Montreal, but then when, because they give you shit when they have to give you shit. And it's a job they have to do, and you can't take it personally. And when it's coming from a guy like that, it's deserved. And so anyway, I think I've tried to do that. Coaching U18 guys, try to be honest with them. We had one or two kids in yesterday, and same kind of thing. You spot things and you ask them questions, and how come this is happening, and what's going on when you're not here at the rink, and stuff like that. It's not like the Spanish Inquisition or anything like that, but you're just trying to ask some questions and see how much they open up, and then they leave, and all of a sudden you can go, well, now it makes sense. This is why he's playing this way. And so, it's the personal side of things and again, there's more and more that today than there used to be. It used to be, you just come in, you get screamed at, you have a good game, it's all good. You have a bad game, you skate, and then it's rinse and repeat. So, but Bernsey was one of the best for sure.
It's interesting because I think of you in today's modern social media and what would be the perception of Craig Ludwig as compared to, because
I don't get on it.
I know, but I mean, you won't admit this, but you were a glue guy, you were a big room guy, but you did like to have a good time, as did a lot of the players. So, I mean, different time, and I bet players would have adjusted like today's players have adjusted, but at the same time, you went out and everything like that, and if people see players out and about all the time, it all of a sudden turns into they don't care, they're not playing hard enough, they should be practicing, etc.
Yeah, and it's about the team too. I mean, the teams that we had, all the teams that I've been on were really good, and that's, but what you do is, there are guys that don't go out, or don't go out the same amount that you may go out, and you don't try to drag them along. You learn that early, and if we go out 5 days a week, they may go out one, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that they're not part of the team, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's more important what you're doing for the 3 hours that you're between the doors and between the rink and the locker room and the ice. That's the important part. It really doesn't matter what happens off the ice as far as being a teammate. I mean, you try to include everybody, and if there's things that you can tell something isn't going well with a player, then you want to go out and have a beer and let's talk about it. If you can't talk to coach, let's, because we are a family. That's the only way that you win those kind of things. You can't be a bunch of individuals. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a different time, and we've talked about this a lot. But when you spend this much time, with each other, you have to find things that you have in common, and you have to find ways. If there is a little bit of a riff between a couple of guys, you got to figure it out, because you can't have that stuff in the locker room. That's why I was a guy. I mean, for me personally, the rule of thumb for a period of time was, you either live by the airport or you live by the practice rink, because those are the two places you spend the most time at. You're going to the airport all the time, you're traveling, you're getting on a plane and all this other stuff, or you're at the practice rink. And in the game, a lot of, now there are a few rinks where you actually practice there, but because of concerts and all that kind of stuff, you have your own rink. And it could be 15, 20 miles away, but you spend more time there than you do driving downtown, for instance, at American Airlines. So I don't know where the guys live now, but that was kind of the rule of thumb. But I never lived by either one of them. I always tried. I found out where, most of the guys are living, and I live someplace else, because I was just the kind of guy. I had friends outside of teammates, and but there were, 4 or 5 of us that were rolled together all the time. And regardless of where you lived, it was just a little further drive home for some guys, depending on where we'd go. But I wasn't one that wanted to, when you come off the road for, 4 or 5 game road trip, and you've been gone for 6, 7 days or what it may be, I don't want to wake up in the morning and when I open up the door, there's Matt Fachucker Hatcher getting in his car, right next door. That just wasn't me.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys all lived next to each other. But I had friends outside of the teammates.
So the other aspect we were talking about was the call-up of Logan Stankoven, and we mentioned at dinner the trade of Joe Nieuwendyk for Jarome Iginla, and I had forgotten, and so I went back and did some research, knowing that we'd talk, because I had asked Craig, as a player, do you know about these prospects coming through your system? And Craig, you had answered that, no, the current guys in the room are the current guys in the room. With modern technology, I just wondered maybe does that change? But that was a holdout by Joe Nieuwendyk in Calgary, and he held out until December. And when he was traded, the Stars immediately signed him to a deal. So Jarome Iginla was drafted that year. So the Stars, it was a little different scenario where Stankoven has been in a training camp with the Stars. So, there have been a couple of years where he was part of the organization. So that's the difference as far as the familiarity with Iginla to Stankoven. But you said regardless, Craig, you guys don't really pay attention to prospects coming through the system, right?
Well, I don't. I mean, again, when you think about it, if they're not picked again, today's different than back in the day, but if you're not selected and being anywhere between first overall to 10th overall, I don't think there was never a really big threat that you're going to even play with those players, because you never know if you're going to be around for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And so you don't really worry about it because at least, the systems that I came in Montreal, especially when I started, for the most part, everybody did their time. They did their time in the minors. And so unless they were, that rare player that could step right in at 18 years old or 20 years old, whatever it may be, and play. And so they went to the minors. So you'd really, I couldn't even tell you the score of one of their games because for me, I had to just worry about my thing. I wasn't worried about anything that I had no control over. And so I didn't have a clue what the minor league team scores were, if they were in first place or last place. I had no idea if the third round pick, number 72nd overall defenseman, what he was playing like. I had no idea. So, and like you say, modern technology, now everything's out there. So it's almost hard not to know something for these guys. And these guys here live on their phones. Like I said, when you bring up the whole social media thing, I don't, for the most part, I don't ever say anything because typically, and I've gotten a little bit better. Like if I'm going to tweet something out there, I don't tweet it right away. I have in the past, and Kim will give me shit about it, but I kind of sit there and go, no, don't worry, no, don't do that. And then it always usually it ends up, no, just don't do it. I'll read stuff, but I don't interact because I'll probably lose. I'll say something at the wrong time, and it's probably and again today everything you say today seems to be the wrong time and place. So it's just better for me to lay off that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So one thing that I don't know if you ever think like back in the day, but the other aspect I was thinking of after dinner the other night was, guys like Wyatt Johnston, Connor McDavid, obviously high draft picks, but then guys, it's very rare for guys. We talk about Stankoven. He went into the, down to the AHL. Maverick Bourque is lighting up the AHL, but had a slow first half and really learn the game with the Texas Stars, and he's ready to come up as well. And I was just amazed because I think back and I said, boy, I'm going to ask Craig this. Were you surprised that you went straight from the NCAA into the NHL? Because, Cale Makar did it, UMass straight in, but Jake Ottinger had to go through the minors. The majority of players will have to go through some kind of minor league system. But were you surprised on a team like Montreal that you just all of a sudden, have you ever looked back and said, wow, I can't believe that happened?
I don't do that because I think at the time I was just a day-to-day guy. I never really looked back. I didn't look forward. I tried to, get to the rink, do what I was supposed to do for that day, practice, and then the game, do what you're supposed to do. And then if a phone call came at night or in the morning saying you're getting sent down, then you get sent down. I mean, because when I left school to go there, I was I was completely 100% that I was going to the minor league team. I never expected to start in Montreal. First off, never expected it. So I was prepared. I was ready to go, and whenever. And then you you get through the first cut and the second cut. And back then, training camps are not like now where there's 3 days and you play an exhibition game. You're there for 2 weeks, and and you kind of get integrated into the players. But we had, again, it's probably where my everything comes from me as far as when I was a player. With teammates as you get older, like, you make sure that the young guys are taken care of, and if they can't find their way around, they're looking for this, you let them know where to go, you take them there, that kind of stuff, because that's what these guys did with me. And I'm talking about Hall of Famers like Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson and Guy Lafleur and Steve Shutt and guys like that were, hey, Luds, come on, we'll take you over there. You need a TV? I'll take you to this guy. Guys want a bed? I'll take you there. What do you want? What kind of beer do you drink? I'll take you there. So, and what happens is you keep your mouth shut and you don't say it. As a matter of fact, Chris Nyland, one of the toughest guys to ever play in the NHL, and to this day, he calls me the same thing. He called me Gabby. That was my nickname in the locker room, was Gabby at the time, because I never said a word. I didn't talk. I just kept my mouth shut. I did my job, and and that was my first, I don't know, couple years, 2-3 years, and then you get, I had Bob Gainey one time. He just, and it's probably my second or third year, I don't remember what it was, and Bob was always teaching. Bob was a Hall of Famer, and the Selke, I mean, basically invented the award for him as the best defensive forward in the NHL. Carbo's won it like 3 times, and Lutz. And so anyways, Gainey grabbed me one day, and he just kind of said, we were probably sitting in a bar after practice or whatever, and having a beer and a sandwich and whatever. And he goes, how come you never say nothing? And I was like, huh? And I'm thinking, dude, I'm like my second or third year, and I'm sitting in the room with 7 Hall of Famers for the Montreal Canadiens. Nobody would say nothing. And he goes, but I think Bob was always, like I said, he was always coaching, always teaching, and he sees things in players. And he goes, why don't you ever say anything? And I kind of said, well, there's a lot of big voices in here. And he goes, I don't think that's what it is. And Bob could be hard to talk to, because he thinks about things before he says them. And there's that pregnant pause, and you're going, oh man, I said the wrong thing. And he goes, I don't think that's what it is. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, I think it's because you're afraid. And I was like, I'm not afraid. He goes, no, you're afraid to say something. He goes, because when you say something, now you become, and you have to be accountable. So if you want somebody to finish their check, or pucks need to get in, then you have to make sure you do it all the time. And I was like, no, that's not the truth. I didn't say that out loud, but I said that to myself. I'm like, this guy's wrong. I mean, so anyway, it was his way of probably bringing me out of my shell and making sure that I did start to speak a little bit more in the room, because there was more penalty killing things, and whether it was blocking shots or finishing your checks or getting to the right opponent and getting to that guy and making it uncomfortable for the night. And if somebody else didn't do it, that was supposed to do it, or that was supposed to be part of doing it, let them know, because that's what we do. We're family here, and we'll get through the good stuff and the bad stuff, but we all have to be on the same page. And so that's what I said. And then I probably started to talk a little bit more, and then I probably became a little bit more of the group. And it was never like they didn't invite you to everything that they did, but again, like I said, I didn't plan on being there right off the bat. So there was just, you can tell that when you're in those kind of rooms with those kind of players, I mean, you could have a monkey come in and coach. And as a matter of fact, we did one time, and we won a cup with them. So, but the players really ran the room, or the leaders, I would say, ran the room. And when certain coaches would come in and give their, a talk that, they needed to give at that time, but they didn't say the right teams, they would, the doors would be closed as soon as they walk out and go, no, just don't forget that. We know what we're doing here. We know how to do it. And we know what our goal is. And we know that we need this guy, this guy, this guy. So I kind of learned that stuff when I got there early. And so, anyway, that's kind of way it worked with me. But as far as, then you start getting into your third and your fourth year, and, you're becoming a bigger part of the team. And then then I think that thought of, getting sent down, not that guys can't get sent down in their third, fourth, fifth year, because it happens, not all the time, but it happens. But I tell players all the time, when the way that I played, I felt that when I played game 4 or game 54, my objective was to play that game. So when I walk into the room tomorrow morning for practice, and your names are on the board, who you're going to play with, or you have jersey color. But my objective was to have my name on that board the next day. And I played that way game 200, game 500, game 1200. I approached it that, I was not one of those kind of players. Like, you're not taking Rupe Hintz out of the lineup, or you're not taking Miro out of the lineup because he had 3 bad games. Where I played and how, my role, if I had 2, 3, 4 shitty games in a row, absolutely they could take me out. I knew that when I was in college. I learned that in college. And so I just played for, that game, and did enough that I felt like I was good enough, and I did what I was supposed to have my name on the sheet to play the next game. That was kind of how I approached every game, that same way, from day 1 to, day 1200 and whatever I played.
Can I take a guess at the monkey? Or
sure. Well, that's because you're sitting there. It's pretty simple to figure it out. It's not going to be Ken Hitchcock, and now you've gone through Hockey DB.
It's not going to be Burns,
and you're going to come up with, what's the name?
Jean Perron.
You got it.
Why you got to call me out? Why can't you just give me credit for hockey knowledge?
Because I know. Because you're sitting there. I can hear the keyboard going. You're typing.
Man, I'm trying to build some, like, hockey.
It's process of elimination. When I say we won it with a Stanley Cup guy, and you know how I feel about Ken Hitchcock, so I'll cross that one off the list.
Did.
Let's go back to 1986. Who was the coach?
Greg's given this great answer. I'm on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Man, I was trying to improve my hockey swag. Okay.
So what's going on with your Dallas Stars? Tell me that.
Yes. So a couple of things that I wanted to focus on.
Are we gonna talk about the hockey team?
Here's the thing. I'm gonna be real honest here. Is that we produce a lot of shows, and honestly, the stuff you're giving is stuff that I think a lot of Stars fans haven't heard. And the behind the scenes stuff about a rookie coming into the room, or people in the minors. I mean, I know it's not the current Dallas Stars, but we do a lot of hardcore Stars talk, but I think this is valuable to Stars fans. So I like hearing the stories, and because that basically we're taking them into the room, Craig. So that's why I like to ask you about these things. But we'll get into some X's and O's. Like, for instance, clearly there's some struggles. You just mentioned Rope Hintz, 5-on-5 with that first line of Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski. I don't even know if we call it the first line anymore, but it's just not clicking right now. I talked about it on Spits and Suds the other night after the game. Just not happening as far as the goals, and the points just aren't there either.
Well, but they've been together forever, right? I mean, that's coaching. That's what happens when things aren't clicking. And you know what? There are times when they need to be apart from each other. And what is it? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And, so you there's times when you got to change things up. I mean, it gets stale. I mean, we do it with our guy. I mean, Addie and I sit in the locker room every day with our group and go, oh man, what are we going to do with our line today? So But anyway, there's just I would probably venture to say that you're going to see Robo and Hintz and Pavs will be back together with 10 games to go in the regular season. I mean, it's been their bread and butter for how many years since Pavs been here, since Hintz and Robo have become what they are. But there's times when you got to split them up, and it's nice to I think coaches need to experiment with things like that during the course of the year, because you get into a playoff round and all of a sudden you're down by a couple games in the playoffs and this line isn't working. You go back in your book and you go, you know what, from game we had 24 games to go, and from 24 games down to 20 we put these three guys together and they were really good together. Let's switch it up right now at the end of the first period or the middle of the second, because this worked before. We need a little bit of a spark. So that's why it happens. I mean, nobody's panicking. There's no panic here. They shouldn't panic. I mean, they're in the top 5 or 6 teams in the NHL.
Yeah.
And the good news for them right now, I believe there's only 4 teams that have a better strength of schedule to the end of the season than Dallas Stars. So now is the time you can do that. You ideally you'd love to finish in the spot where you're going to get the the wild card team that you want to get, but that may not happen. The way that Vancouver's rolling along, who knows what's going to happen, but they've just got to take care of what they can take care of. And I think as it is today, they may play LA. If it finishes the way it is right now. Again, I don't know, what is there, 25 games to go or something like that, 24. Something in that neighborhood.
It would be LA.
So, which I can hear the keyboard clicking right now.
No,
so
I'm not. No
what
keyboard,
it is.
No keyboard.
But and then the other thing I believe I looked at the other day. I mean, when I talk about strength of schedule, they've got at least 14 teams or so on the rest of their schedule that are not playoff teams. Which sets up really good for them. I mean, again, that's why when you talk about adjusting lines, this is not a bad time to have to do it, and whether you have to or you're just experimenting. But then again, I look, Joe Pavelski's in the last 5 games, he's your leading time guy on the ice.
Yeah.
As far as forwards go, he's at 17 minutes, even though he kind of got flipped around to a couple different lines. But the oldest guy on the team as far as forwards go over the last 5-6 games is playing the most minutes. And then your number one defenseman is not Miro Heiskanen.
No,
it's Thomas.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Harley deserves it. I mean, he's been great.
All right. So I wanted to ask you on Monday's game, because last week we talked about defensive assignments, zone versus man on man. And I'm watching, and obviously I rewinded the first Bruins goal, but I'm watching real time as Boqvist is streaking down the right-hand side for the Bruins, and I'm like, oh, my God, if he gets the puck, that's a goal. And, watching the replay, and it was just commented on a couple of times that was the second defensive shift of Polyak and Petrovic, and I thought to myself, both those guys had their man. Like, I don't think it's their fault. And so I ask you, how can the Stars prevent that? And am I wrong? That's the forward's responsibility, which at the time was Joe Pavelski.
Right. And that's what happens when we were just doing this with our group yesterday in practice, and we spent 20 minutes on it, coming back into your own zone. And you start the drill, just for instance, and these guys will do this at times. I mean, you start to drill from the offensive zone. When a puck turns over, you come back into your own end of the rink, and you have spots that you need to be. And there's the area that you call the house, and that's from the goal crease out to the top of the circle, and kind of draw a little box down the face-off dots and out to the top of the circle back to your net. And it's kind of like, if you don't know where to be in that area, because that's the most dangerous areas. I'll take a marker and I take the face-off dots through the middle of the rink, from one end of the rink all the way to the other end of the rink, from the offensive zone to the defensive zone, and D zone back to the offensive zone. And you just kind of take a squiggly line and you draw it all the way through the middle of the ice. That's the most dangerous area. Depending on what end, I don't care what end you're on. You want to keep things to the perimeter. If you can keep them to the outside, your goalie's happy about it. Angled shots, pick up sticks and move people. So when they come back into their zone, a lot of times what'll happen is the forwards will see, okay, well, there's two opposing forwards and we have two defensemen back. So we're good. And everything's fine. Well, if you're not looking around and having your head on a swivel, next thing you know, there's a guy blowing by you. And now the numbers are in their favor. And so, it again, we're not pinning this on Joe Pavelski. I mean, he's been one of the best players. He's the oldest guy in the team. He does things right 99.9% of the time. And so, but sometimes there's just lapses and you're looking the wrong way. And all of a sudden you're like, where did he come from? So and what happens is guys are coming back into their own zone. They have their eyes aimed in that direction and you have to have your head turning around. You have to look behind you and you always have to, I preach that you always have to expect something bad to happen, something bad, something unexpected. You have to be prepared for, and sticks on the ice, be in the good area. You don't, like I said, be in those good areas of the ice and we can sort it out from there.
Would that be the same?
And again, okay. that was the thing when you play certain systems in your ring or in your own end, you have to be able to think. But you have to be able to skate and think at the same time. Not all players can do that. Obviously, in the NHL, the majority of them they're there for a reason, and that they can do that. They can play and think and skate and fly and, make passes. But what they're so good at is they know what they're going to do before they get the puck. They don't just watch Miro Heiskanen have the puck on his stick. Okay, Miro's coming behind the net. I'm watching for him. Yeah, he's coming my way, and I got to get over here. They're looking around and they know what's up ice. They know what's to the right of them, to the left of them. So when I get the puck, I know where they are. I know where I'm going to be able to go, or at least have an idea where I'm going to be able to go. That's the hardest thing to teach young players is just stop getting attracted to that puck all the time, especially when you don't have it. You have to know what's going to happen or have an idea before it hits your tape and know where an area of the ice is. Where's my teammate? Where's my centerman? Is my defenseman in a spot that I can give it to him if I need him? Or am I just going to have to chip it out and live to fight another day? So
same philosophy then on when the Stars are on the power play, because I think Stars fans are frustrated by the number of breakouts from the shorthanded team against them all season long.
Yeah, but that's kind of a trend now. It seems like there's some teams in the league that are gaining. For me, what it is, it's when you're on the power play, it's a spot you can lose momentum. When the four guys, what it generally comes down to is four guys are out working five. That's really what it comes down to. And you're on the power play. You can't think, well, we got the extra guys, so it should be easy for us. Yeah, it's not the way they kill anymore. They're so aggressive. Teams can skate and things like that. And so, but again, it's all pre-scouting too. And they go through this every day. They know what the penalty killers are. They know who likes to get up on the rush. See, again, I always talk about, and this is not an excuse. I always talk about these games when you get in that certain area of the season, and you really don't know who your team is and who they're going to be, what they're like until you get somewhere around the 35, 40, 50 game mark. And now you can kind of see you are who you are. There's going to be tweaks. You're going to get better. And then there's that point where we're a playoff team. Are we going to finish first or second or third? We know where we want to finish. We know the ideal spot, but you're looking towards the playoffs too, which you never say, don't look forward. Don't look at that. Don't look. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Let's get down to 10, 12 games to go. Because now we're really getting mentally ready to play whoever, but we're probably going to play this team. So there's this pocket of games now, and they've got 25 left or 24, whatever it is. So now they're kind of in that window where, man, let's just get to those 10 games. We know we gotta keep the foot on the gas because Colorado's there, Winnipeg's there, blah, blah, blah. You want to keep your foot on the gas, but it's hard sometimes. And now what becomes hard for them, for me, is not the good teams, because they're going to get ready for the good teams that they've got in their schedule, but it's the 14 teams that aren't playoff teams, and that'll be the coach's concern too. Like we got to get our game in order. And so we've got Anaheim a couple times. You got San Jose 2 or 3 times. You got Arizona a couple times. Those that should be points, but it's not even so much all the time about gaining those 2 points. It's about how we're playing our game, how we're going to play heading into game 1 of the playoffs.
It's just one of those things that I asked you about the other night about the 2 defenseman system. If you can have mobile defensemen, because a lot of defensemen now can play the forward position, especially on the power play. But, that's one of those things. That's kind of like an old school philosophy. I just hate these like odd man breakouts. It just, to me, it's like a killer. Like the Stars go on power play, and I'm like, I don't really get excited, Craig. I'm like, I'd rather see 5-on-5, because I think all throughout the year they've been best on 5-on-5.
Yeah, they've got 3 scoring lines when everybody's healthy and running.
Yeah.
And the 4th line contributes just as much. They just don't have the ability to score like, the other couple lines, because they don't have those guys on there. But again, playoffs, goaltending and special teams. I mean, that's, because that's what it comes down to, and so you have to have your special teams in order. And, Dallas has dined on a very, very good power play for a few years now. And so, but again, you pick out things when you're the opponent, you're picking out things against them. And when playoff time comes around, don't think that these guys aren't already, other teams are starting to look at possibilities who you're going to play in the first round. So if we're playing LA in the neutral zone, they play this system LA does. It's almost like a 1-3-1. And you're going to see them not force hard a lot of times when you forecheck. And they're going to have one, if you're breaking out of your zone, there's going to be 1 forward sitting around the blue line. There's going to be 3 forwards right around the red line as a center line. And then they're going to have 1 defenseman already waiting inside the defensive zone. They force you to dump the puck in. That defenseman's got a big jump on it by the time it's in. He's already down below the tops of the circles. Usually it's Drew Doughty. He gets down there. He picks it up, makes a breakout pass, and they go. That's how they had the success early in the year. And it's kind of backfired on them at some point. Change coaches. Now they're kind of back to it. But everybody knows the systems. All these guys are sitting in there putting things together about all playoff possible teams and how they play, when they play. I mean, there's so many details, that they're going to have thrown at them. Not that it's overwhelming for them, but just the little details of the game. And then my biggest thing is always you have to make adjustments. you can't, because they're going to make adjustments. And like I said last year, there were the system that they were playing in their own zone. You can get away with that against a couple teams. And then in comes Vegas, a team like Vegas who goes, here's what they're doing. This is how we're going to do this. Next thing you know, a couple guys aren't where they should be, and there's a goal. So, but listen, you got to go through it to get to it, and I just believe with the coaching staff and the players and the veterans that they have now, they've learned from the things that have held them back, why they weren't at that, and, they weren't having the parade in town. So they should all be better for it. And again, health comes into it. I mean, you got to make sure that, your best players are healthy. And then, they've had enough opportunities, right, to be able to plug in a few guys here and there.
Yeah.
So that did you expect Steele to be as good as he is? Look what happens when you give Delandry a couple, 3-4 minutes more.
Yeah.
Not that he puts it in the back of the net every time, but he's dangerous going the other way.
Got
things
good energy.
happen in
He's
the
been real good on
offensive zone when he's
too.
on the ice.
Yeah, good on the kill too. I think he's really aggressive on the kill. I like what he does as far as he's got a stick out there. He breaks up a lot of plays, get in some lanes. So, I like his game, and I'm glad they're playing him, and I'm glad Stars fans are seeing that, with regular time, and I hope that stays the case, because I think he's earned his way onto, the ice every single time they play. Now, it'll be interesting, when and if Dodonov comes back, and they have a full roster, what's going to happen with Dellandrea. But the other thing is the future, and I know you can't think of it, but at the same time, this is a guy that was a first-round draft pick for you, and you do have an interesting decision. Do you continue to pay him as a restricted free agent, or do you use that cap money elsewhere? So, those are the things that I like thinking of. And, I'm also thinking of the trade deadline, Craig. I have to be honest with you, playing Ottawa, a guy like Jacob Chikrin does that, and I don't think Ottawa wants to deal Jacob Chikrin, but does let's say, a big defenseman take you over the top as far as winning the Stanley Cup? I'm not sure of that answer. And that's why I'm a little worried giving away high-valued prospects, which I think are NHL ready. But I also look at you, and when a Nieuwendyk walks in the room, that was a piece that took you guys over the top, right?
No, for sure. I mean, I don't think any of us really, I think we were shocked, to be honest with you, because there was no rumors, nothing. It just happened. And it was like, what? Who? For who? And then, like I said, now you're talking about for Jarome Iginla. And would you make that same deal today? I don't know. You know what I mean? But as players, you've heard of Jarome Iginla, where he was drafted, what round he went for the Stars, but you're like, well, geez, how do we get Nieuwendyk for this kid?
Yeah.
Why would Calgary take this kid? Well, look at what he turned into. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why they did
Hall
it.
of Famer.
Yeah. And as you said, there was contract issues going on with Nui. So, but that was, and you're not going to say that was the piece, because Gainey was making moves prior to that. You bring in, obviously, Hully, Nieuwendyk, Zuby. I mean, look at Daryl Sador. Look at the pieces. Sean Chambers, guys that you wouldn't, they're not your household name, but talk about playing big roles, whether they were 26-minute a night or 14 a night. So, that's all part of it, and that's why. I mean, aren't we sitting here today with the general manager that was general manager of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the moves he made last year for not giving up much. Dennis Gurianov for Dodonov, and then I think it was a second-round pick for Max Domi. And both contributed, and both were really good in the playoffs, I thought. So interesting to see what kind of pieces they bring in at the trade deadline and what they protect. They do have a first-round pick to give if they need this year, and it seems as though for a premium defenseman, you have to give that first-round pick because, for everyone that wants a Chris Tanev, understand there are 5 other teams that want Chris Tanev, maybe more. So,
yeah, and that's what, do you mortgage your future?
Exactly.
And again, I think I have no knowledge, but I'm probably sitting there. Tom Gillardy may go, do we believe that we're going to be one of the top 4 teams that have the opportunity to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Yeah.
I would say yes. Then I would say, if it's Tanev, what do we have available? What do they want? But again, Calgary knows that too, right?
Absolutely.
So they're going to say, well, we got 3 other teams here. We got 3 other teams. Here's what they're offering. They're offering a first. They're offering this. That's for a 36-year-old. Really? Well, that's what the price is.
Yeah.
I'm here to take care of my team. I'm not here to win a Stanley Cup for you guys.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes down to. And I would say, don't think that they don't have their boards in their offices, a briefcase full of papers with notes and players and draft picks all over them, going, okay, because again, we talk about, well, and we got to include Matt Duchene in there, but you talk about Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. I mean, especially those 2 guys, they're Joe Pavelski. We're not going to have these guys at the top of their game. And I'm not saying they're at the top of their game, but for another 3-4 years. So is this our window right now? I would say that I thought their window was 2-3 years ago, to be honest with you. But the way that they're playing, you have to say they're contenders.
Yeah.
And so the conversations will probably go with, their staff. And then I would guess that when it's something to a certain level, you call your owner. I do not know how involved Mr. Gillardy is as far as, okay, let's pull the trigger on it. I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do that. I think if it involves money, then that's probably more of an important phone call generally. But that's why they pay those guys to do their job. And as far as I know, Mr. Gillardy lets guys do their job. And it's not that not that guy that's, calling every week and saying, man, I want to get this guy. I want this guy. So,
Yep.
And really, like I said, I think you've got to trust what Jim has done, because he's kept this team hovering near the top of the league for a few years. They've been knocking on the door. I just think that, again, we know Jake Ottinger's a good goalie, right? I mean, when he's on his game, he's one of the top 3, 4, 5, wherever you want to put him in the league. He's got to have his game in order heading into the game 1 of the playoffs. That's for me where it is.
Yeah, we're out of time, unfortunately, sir.
Thank God.
Oh, come on. This was just this hour of just smooth conversation and chemistry.
Yeah, it's been a slice. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, quick.
Now I had Jesus, you have no idea how much my show I've missed now, so I mean, I'm sitting here. I had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire recorded. My recording stops after 30 minutes.
I'm sorry.
And see, I pause it all the time when a question comes up that I don't know, and then I ask Google. So I ask Google, I get the answer, so I'm always right. I'm like, oh man, how did that guy not know that? Well, it's almost running out of time for
all right. Well,
that one.
Get to your TV program, sir. And big shout out once again to Big E and Elaine and Tom were the others, and our server Harold and Musame.
Harold's a rock star.
Musame. People spent money to spend an evening with Craig and myself, more Craig. And the Sandlot Charity is an amazing organization. Thousands of dollars are donated basically to allow kids that don't have the same opportunity because they don't have the same physical or mental capabilities to play in sports just like everyone else. And when you watch the results of the Sandlot Charity, it truly is special. So thank you, Craig, for contributing your time to that. I appreciate it. And thank you for contributing your time to here. I know this is less important, but appreciate that, sir. Have a good week, and we will talk to you soon.
Till next time. Later.
Till next time, go back to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. For Craig Ludwig, I'm Gavin Spittle.
I'm already on Deal or No Deal now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jesus. Let the guy wrap up.
Match game. Deal or No Deal, then match game. Are you trying to wrap up?
Yeah. Trying to do the official radio wrap up like that, All right, let's just end the program.
Just so you know, after match game is America Says.
Oh, my God.
I'll be on my way to the ring. Are you going to wrap this show up?
I'm wrapping it up. Thanks for listening to Spits and Suds 105 through the Fan. Have a great day.